Jennifer Dupree, and I won in short nonfiction. I've had this long friendship with my friend who has cerebral palsy. This particular essay is sort of I guess, a mosaic essay of all the things that have happened to him and to me by extension, primarily focusing on like his experiences in the medical field. For a long time, resisted writing because I think that I thought that it wasn't my story to tell. With the encouragement of friends and my therapist, and I approached my friend and said, "What do you think? What do you think if I start to tell these stories of all these things that have happened over the years?" I anticipated that he was going to say no, and then I wouldn't have to do it. And then he was all excited about it, and so I started. The way you shape a story, the way you develop character, the way you use dialogue, all of those craft techniques are the same, whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction. But it's, for me, overwhelming to have all of the information at the start, because when I write fiction, I have none of the information at the start. It's been really satisfying to hear from people that they want to see if it can be used as a teaching tool, like in nursing homes and hospitals, for medical students. I think that's such a compliment. That feels really good. I've always written, probably everybody tells you that, but I got my undergraduate degree in healthcare, and I was working in healthcare, and that's how I met my friend Marcel. I worked in long-term care, and a lot of what you're doing is listening to people's stories, and so I think that all of that feeds the writer in you anyway. A lot of times I feel like the use of the second person is kind of gimmicky, so I was resistant to it, but I have a lot of concern about appropriation, and I'm not like I still am not 100% convinced that I'm not appropriating Marcel's story. The way as a writer that I could justify doing that is to direct address to him, and it felt right. Like, it felt like that was the key for me to unlock this reticence I had about writing these. I loved when they announced that I won. What they said was, it raises the question of what constitutes a life. Marcel has a beautiful life, and we have a beautiful friendship, and that friendships come in all different shapes and sizes. It's a call for compassion and a call for taking time to really listen to people and not make assumptions about people, particularly in the medical field, but in life. One of my mentors at Stone Coast had us do this like writing prompt that I've always really liked. It was, I think, more for fiction, but it applies to nonfiction. And it was to have one of your characters write you a letter saying like, "Dear Jen, here's what you got wrong about me." And I think that's not necessarily writing advice, but I think the advice behind that prompt is like to dig a little deeper, right? Like, try to look at the flip side of every character in every situation. In this particular set of essays that I'm working on, I had a friend that I went to graduate school with who also has a disability. I had her read these essays, and she said, not for this particular essay, but for a different one, "Boy, you really let Marcel off the hook pretty easily." And I thought, oh, that's really interesting. And she said, "You're letting him off the hook because he has a disability, and you need to look more critically at him." And she's right. That moment when I won and I introduced Marcel and everybody cheered for him, that was so moving. And it was so, writers are awesome. And this community it was really lovely. It was a really good moment, and I'm going to keep that